Once I drafted and presented to the Speaker's office, I was told there was a similar statement by Senator Cherargei, and who is a very brilliant advocate, and whom I have a lot of past engagement. I don't want to go into that now. Madam Speaker, I think this is a seeking for statement. So for us, it's just to ride on it to get supplementary questions that we need to get. And it is, when I heard the Cabinet Secretary that they are not going to buy maize from the farmers for strategic food reserve, I was shocked. And Madam Speaker, in seeking this statement by Senator Cherargei, I would like to know from the Cabinet Secretary the policy paper that informed the decision to stop buying maize from farmers. Because farmers in Trans Nzoia, Bungoma, Uasin Gishu, Elgeyo Marakwet, Nandi, West Pokot, Nakuru, Narok, Mr. Speaker, most parts of Kericho, where a lot of maize has been produced to protect this country. There was a reason why in the governments of President Kenyatta, President Moi, President Mwai Kibaki, that it was necessary, Mr. Speaker, to be buying maize from farmers and protect and safeguard the farmers, but at the same time, food security of the country. Suddenly, not in the first term of Jubilee, in the second term of Jubilee administration, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, and particularly somewhere between 2019 and now, there has been something strange that I will be forgiven to imagine. There is a strategic attack of persons and farmers who come from certain places in this country and certain counties, Mr. Speaker, which, Mr. Speaker, I think it goes beyond just government policy. It is political. And we need to call it what it is. There has been certain cabinet secretaries who have been behaving in a manner like you have to punish citizens to settle political scores with government officials whom they work together. And this issue of stopping purchase of maize from farmers is more than government policy. It is politics. And you know that for us who come from the North Rift, we have already suffered enough, Madam Speaker, in the internal fights within Jubilee over their own political issues. I have always said and insisted, if people have their own fights about 2022, they should leave our farmers alone. And they should leave our citizens in that area alone and deal with each other mundu kumundu like politicians. That is really what we have to call it what it is.
So, Senator Murkomen, we don't want you to answer for the committee.
No, but you see, Madam Speaker.
The committee, and you had rightfully said that you are supposed to be giving supplementary questions for statement that has come from 48-1. It is still going to be laid to the committee. We have raised questions, and I think the committee will be able to deal with it. But don't answer for them.
Madam
because
Speaker.
They will bring the report here for our debate. It was very unfortunate that most people did not debate last week the same state, the answer that brought this issue, but we are very grateful that it has been picked. But please, let's not guide the committee on the answers.
Madam Speaker, I'm glad you acknowledge that my submissions are answers, which means you don't disagree with what I'm saying. The only thing I wanted to say is that it's important because I'll not be sitting in the committee when those questions are being submitted. And it's important for the chair of the committee and the members to ask why farmers from that area are being targeted. Is it political? Is there a policy framework? Why is it systematic? That really will answer my question. These are the things about, because these things are done in hard dog manner. You will still remember in your committee, some farmers up to now have not been paid. You still remember that those farmers have been profiled. Those farmers were not paid because they were said it's linked to a certain person. And then corruption was used as an excuse. Why target one group, one area, one community for purpose of settling your political scores? The last thing I want to say is to agree with Senator Sakaja that, Madam Speaker, Nairobi, Senator Sakaja, you will want to hear this. Nairobi is one of the leading agriculture counties. And when I read some literature, I was shocked. But I was even more shocked when I had a conversation with the president sometime 3 years ago. And he told me that he had gone to see a farmer in Karen who is the leading milk producer in the country. And I got some greater interest in trying to find out who he was. And I found out that it is indeed true that Nairobi has the leading milk producer in the country. And so we shouldn't leave Nairobi out of the conversation about farming. But I want to challenge Senator Sakaja. Already your county has the potential to raise a lot of revenue. Because although most of us come from various counties, most of us live here and we pay a lot of taxes here. I saw the military government of Nairobi was asking for 27 billion for this financial year. So Sakaja, you need to find a way of engaging the military to see how they can allocate more to farmers. Thank you, Madam. On the issue of government saying they cannot continue buying maize for the strategic food reserve. But let me start by saying that food security is a very important issue for this country. Agriculture has been praised to be a serious honor, foreign honor for this country. But, Madam Speaker, it is still appalling that we still import 90% of the rice that we consume in this country. We still import 75% of the wheat that we consume in this country. And we still import between 10 and 20% of the maize that we consume in this country, despite the fact that we have a lot of land that is arable. When the Jubilee administration, Madam Speaker, came to office in 2013, one of the things we promised the people of Kenya was to ensure that we will use irrigation for farming and open up the arid and semi-arid areas as places for irrigation. That is why there was argument that Badasa Dam, for example, in Marsabit, will be revived and be used to ensure that there is irrigation. That's why, Madam Speaker, Aror and Kimwarer projects were put in place. It's a shame today that Aror and Kimwarer continue attracting foreign interest, and we're paying loans with interest on a project that, Madam Speaker, has been extremely politicized and left to, Madam Speaker, a situation where government is paying money to Italians, but at the same time, the people of Elgeyo Marakwet, both in Keyo and Marakwet site, are not taking the advantage of irrigating the Kimwarer area and Aror area. We know that in the lower Takwel area, there is a bit of irrigation in Weiwei, which I saw my friend Professor Lonyangapo 2 years ago demonstrating the work they're doing there on irrigation, but they're only operating on less than 10% of the potential of the lower Takwel. And so the question I ask myself, is government planning to give us promises continuously about food security, or is there a way that we coordinate the activities of, say, for example, Kerio Valley Development Authority, which is supposed to implement the Aror and Kimwarer and Lower Takwel projects, coordinating together with the Agriculture Department? What happened to dams like Badasa in Marsabit? What happened to dams like Tuake? What are their potential for irrigation, the lower stream? These are things that must be of strategic and great focus for this country. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, for the last 3 years, this country has been treated to circus, political circus, and competition and infights within government at the expense of focusing on delivering on the people of Kenya. Now, we are told that the answer to every problem at the moment is to say that we will have a stimulus package for this, stimulus package for that. Where will we raise the money for those stimulus package? Where will we raise the money to ensure that we feed over 12 million Kenyans who depend directly on agriculture to be supplied to the urban areas? I don't know, this statement by Senator Kaniri is beautiful. It's a very nice statement, but it must move beyond the question of just raising the statement. And I saw the last part of it is challenging the Agriculture Committee to do a proper inquiry. The question we need to ask ourselves as a House is that we've been telling the various committees to come with reports of various things they are doing. Do these committees only operate when we raise statements, or they ask they act suo moto by their own initiative to ensure that they take up such challenges. For example, the question Kenyans will be asking ourselves, what will Kenya be like beyond COVID, and what is food security going to be like in this country in this period of COVID and after? And I think the committee, by its own motion, without being pushed all the time with statements, should be able to look up to this issue and bring a comprehensive report to this House. We have a minister, Madam Speaker, who on one hand tells Kenyans, we will ensure food security is achieved. On another, he was quarreling with his own governor in Meru yesterday or 2 days ago about this function being devolved. So this passing of the buck between national and county government, you give a function to the counties and say agriculture is devolved, but you give them little money to carry out that very important function of devolved functions. And lastly, when the formula for sharing resources will be brought to this House, one of the things that CRA did in the draft formula before we passed in this House was to categorize certain important sectors that must be funded, and agriculture is one of